Hello, I am Sherry Hart, counselor at Alma Bryant High School.
Hi, and I'm Stephen Watts, school counselor at Citronelle High School. Today, for our final session with you, we want to take some time to look back over these last month and a half, 2 months, where we haven't physically been in a building with you, but school has continued. I'd like to take a look at what we've learned, what we've come through, what we've persevered through, and then talk for just a while about preparing for what's next. School next year for those of you who will be continuing in high school. So what have we learned through this process? Certainly there was some devastation, and I don't want to minimize that. It was a very critical time, has been for many, many people. A time riddled with anxiety and frustration and confusion about the unknown. But in the middle of all that, I'd like to think as a school counselor that we can take some lessons with us away from those experiences. So what could some of those be? Well, first, let me commend you. You've made it to this point, and you have been resilient in the face of adversity. That saying is so true. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. And we had a choice. We could quit. We could say, I can't handle this. I can't deal with it. I can't move on. When we heard the announcement schools wouldn't be continuing. But administrators, counselors, teachers, and ultimately students and their families rose to the occasion. And in these difficult, uncharted circumstances, I've seen so many students prove themselves resilient.
Yes.
They've pressed forward, they've made it through. And it's a lesson that it's sort of a school counselor's dream, that your students learn that early, that you're going to have problems. There will be adversity, there will be barriers, there will be problems, but we can get through them and come out on the other side stronger. We, I hope, learn to let go of some things, because there are some things that we absolutely can't control. So this circle of control here is a graphic made by a school counselor. Yeah, it's awesome. Made by a school counselor in the state of Tennessee, and it went viral on Facebook. It was shared over and over again. And not just because school counselors liked it, but students and their families, their parents, really identified with, I cannot control how much toilet paper is in the store. I can't control if other people are following the plan laid out by the governor or by the president or by the superintendent. I can't control those things. But there are some things, my attitude, my gratefulness, what I'm choosing to believe.
Limiting social media.
Right, what I'm letting in my mind, and also what I'm saying, what I'm sharing, the attitudes that I have, those are things that I can control. It's another classic school counselor lesson that we hope students are able to learn by the time they leave 12th grade. There are so many things that you're never going to be able to fix. Focus on what you can do. Yeah. Start there. Start from where you're strongest, your strength, and then work through those weaknesses. And I hope that's one thing we've learned throughout this process that we can do. We leveled up. Most of us. Yes. Had not ever really tackled distance learning, and now we have.
And we've done it successfully. College students even found that this, never taking an online course before, it was pretty difficult. So, yeah. Everyone that had to tackle this is found that it was, so you should be very proud of yourself.
Well, and Ms. Hart, you mentioned to me in a previous conversation that one of your previous students, former students, mentioned that one of the things that would have been really nice in high school to have had was more preparation for online courses.
Yes, so you have it. You have a new skill.
Right, that's when you don't get what you want.
Be grateful for that.
Yeah, you get experience, and you have that now. It's under your belt. And for most of you, it's not just completing one course, but an entire semester's worth you finished through distance learning, whether it was online or a packet. You accommodated the situation and your teachers, and you worked with your teachers. And those are life skills now that you have. No one can take those from you, and you have those strengths. They're positives in your hat that you can use moving forward. So from a tough situation, we learned that good things can happen. We had to branch out and do some of our own independence. As students, you found out a lot about yourself and maybe your own work ethic. You had to push yourself when it wasn't fun and when you didn't want to do the work, and when there wasn't a teacher necessarily in front of you face to face saying, hey, we have to get this done. We found out that the care that teachers have for us is not just in a classroom, but it's over the phone and in a web video, through a Google Classroom. We could see that, and together we got through this, and we learned some new skills along the way. And then finally, we learned more about what happens in a crisis. You know, a crisis can bring out the worst in people, but often we find it brings out the best in people. And what Ms. Hart and I shared with you in our first session is that there was a whole community of people who wanted to help our students, help you and your families. And we learned that even when we're apart, we are better together. We're stronger when we work together. And so from everything from food resources to educational resources, social emotional resources to support you during this time of anxiety, we learned that together we can get this done.
And we've been through different crises before, but
That's
nothing
right.
like this. Is just a whole new ball game of learning how to react to something so different outside of anything we've ever had to deal with. I mean, we've had hurricanes and
That's right.
and where we've shut down school, but this is totally different. So the community is key, like you've got up
Right.
here,
And it's a valid
leaning
point.
on each other
Yes,
from a
because
distance.
right, socially acceptable distance. It's a valid point that we absolutely are not new to handling a crisis, but this crisis is new. And even from that, I think we can take away, again, school counselor's dream, check mark for skills that we learn as students before we leave high school. And that is that we're not ever immune from a crisis, from a problem. After this one is gone, there will be another, and it may not look just like this, but the lessons that we've learned, the experiences we've had through this process, certainly we can take and use for whatever happens next. And I always take comfort in knowing that today, the way things are today, doesn't last forever. Change does come, and that's a good thing. So a lot that we've learned throughout this process, and I hope that you don't believe these months were wasted. They looked different than we thought they would, especially for our seniors.
Yeah.
I still mourn with you that things didn't go the way we planned, but from this difficult situation, there's a lot to be learned. And I don't want to forget those lessons that we learned.
So those of you that will be transitioning to your senior year, there are usually things that you want to be doing prior to your senior year. For one, you want to be researching what you're planning to do after high school, because during your senior year, you won't have time to be doing a lot of research and trying to figure out your plans after high school. So the summer prior to your senior year, that's when you need to do it. And right now, you need to be doing that online. Another thing you need to do is take your ACT again. So we were talking about this earlier, that ACT had to reschedule the April exam. Well, they had to cancel the April exam, but if you did sign up to take it in April, they moved your registration to June. We are a national test site, Bryant High School is, and they contacted us yesterday to see if we would still be able to seat people there if we had to have them 6 feet apart. So they are still planning to have the June test, and they're adding a July test. So if you are going to be a senior next year, or if you plan to take the ACT, you need to still plan on taking it in the summer, because there will be the social distance in place during June and July. So you can go to act.org and find out more information about that. But juniors, be looking at the website. We'll go into that in just a second, but that good website that we talked about a few weeks ago to figure out college majors. But now is the time. I mean, you're at home, you're online anyway with Google Classroom. Now is the time. I mean, when students come to me and want to find out something, most of the time I do a Google search and find everything.
Give away our counselor
yes,
secrets.
exactly. So, I mean, you can find everything at your fingertips now. You can do the virtual tours of all of the colleges now. So now's the time to be doing that.
As you're thinking about ACT, one thing I see seniors do sometimes in that senior year is they are trying to get that last ACT score in. They want to meet that admission or scholarship deadline, application deadline. If we do the same things that we've always done and expect a different result, I think that's probably the definition of insanity. We don't get anything new unless we put something new in effort into that process. So as you begin thinking about taking your ACT for the final time, prep, study, look at your scores from previous test administrations and look at those subtests that you scored the lowest in and prep specifically for those areas. If reading is your strength but math is not, then focus on math and getting that score up. And there's some great resources now. When we could meet in buildings, and we'll get there again, I know that Baker High School often would have an ACT boot camp, and they're not the only high school, but often Baker would open that to students from any high school. It's normally like a $75, I think, boot camp.
But
and it was a great resource.
If you use a fee waiver for the ACT,
That's
which our students
right.
should be using a fee waiver, you get the ACT online prep at no cost.
And that's actstudent.org, the same place you register for the test.
And to get the fee waiver, you need to contact your school counselor.
That's right.
We can still send those to you by email, so that shouldn't be a problem. If your school is out, ask your counselor to contact another school because we have those fee waivers still available. But all of our students, if you're a junior or senior, you can take the ACT at no cost. Now it's 2 times per year, and they did that because of the new update with them being able to take just the subject test coming up next year. So the new thing with ACT is you have to take the ACT, the full whole test at least one time, and then if you only want to take the subject area tests, after that you're allowed to do that beginning next year. It's
really important that if you only need to retake the math, that you are focusing your study, your prep in that area. So you have boot camps. Again, those are cost, and we can't use a waiver for those boot camps. And they're offered only during specific times. So Facebook is going to be a really important avenue to learn at the school's websites to learn about those opportunities. If you are using a waiver, actstudent.org, you have ACT's prep program. They're the makers of the test. So the test prep from them is going to be top notch. We talked about Homework Alabama several weeks ago. HomeworkAlabama.com has an entire section devoted to test prep and self-study. So certainly explore their ACT prep and SAT. .org, I'm sorry. HomeworkAlabama.org. And remember that the ACT is one piece, right? So let me encourage you, don't let your grade slip as we enter this final senior year. Senioritis is a very real thing that some seniors catch. Don't let your GPA slip, because often colleges are looking not just at ACT score, but they're coupling that with the GPA that you have. Prepare to complete the FAFSA. If you haven't done that, wink, wink, go back to last week's session where we covered FAFSA, and there's some really good information there for you as well. So let's talk about exploring colleges and universities. I'm a junior, I'm headed into my senior year, and I hear this sometimes from students, what are you planning after high school? And I don't know. And that's not a bad answer, but we don't want that to be the final answer. So what would you suggest to me? Where do I go? How do I begin to explore what my next options are?
There are those career interest inventories that you can take at the al.cooter.com
right,
site.
From the Alabama Career Claiming System.
And you can take those as many times as you want to. Those career interest inventories are great gauges of the career that would be best suited for your interests. If you answer those questions truly, and not just in the middle of don't know, not sure, if you answer them as best as you can, you will get a true answer of, every time I've done it, it says a counselor. It just,
you chose wisely.
Yes. So if you do go and take interest inventories, and you can find them online too if you don't, you can find many of them, but that's the best way to figure out what do I want to do, what do I want to do with my life, because you don't want to be in a career that you hate. you want to do something that you love, because then you're never really working. You're doing something that you love.
Right.
But then once you do that, then you can explore the cost of how do I get to that career? What do I need to do? Do I need to go to a 2-year college? Is it a job just straight out of high school? What skills do I need? What do I need to do? So that's the first steps. And then explore, if it's a major, go explore who has this major.
Right, and I think that's the next logical step. Once you know what you're interested in, and you're especially if you are at the Alabama Career Planning website, you log in with your MCPSS credentials through Clever. Then you can explore the major. Where do you go? I mean, what kind of degree do you have to have?
And everything is at that website.
It's there, and there's a lot of resource that when we're face to face, honestly, we don't even have time to work through with students to justice, because there's so much inside that website. So it's a great place to begin exploring majors, your interests, the cost. You can look at institutions. And I would suggest then going directly to their websites. Mm-hmm. So I just put some logos here. We have included of our local colleges, recruiters from our local schools, universities, those institutions that are here for us are great about working with our students. Mm-hmm. They'll work with you on a personal basis. But certainly, look, again, any school's website has most of the information that a school counselor would go look up if you came and asked that question, because things change from year to year. And so one of the ways that I can best keep up with the changes at an institution, go to their website. Exactly. So we talked about 2 weeks ago. We talked about Campus Reel, which is a great resource. You can see a screen grab here. Hundreds of institutions from across the country. You can see videos of their dorms, their dining facilities. So get a picture of what life might be like there for a student. Sometimes they have student-hosted videos. It just gives you a peek into what it might be like to be a student there. And then, of course, certainly you can explore majors within their individual colleges. Did I leave anything out, Ms. Hart?
I don't think so.
How you'd explore what your options might be for post-secondary education. And then finally, there's a lot of uncertainty still about what things will look like this summer. Some high schools in our district do require students to complete community service. I know from my seniors this semester who had not yet completed their community service hours, those were waived. But depending on what normal looks like next year, those community service hour requirements could be back in place. So if you're able this summer, and certainly as we enter into the fall, tackle those community service projects early on. The thing about community service is it's good for whoever's receiving the service. You're helping them. But one of the great things about community service is that ultimately it helps you. It helps you because you're giving back. And so there's an emotional and mental reward for helping someone else. And then a byproduct of that is you get to include it on a resume. And when it comes time to apply to colleges and scholarships, often they want to see, have you been involved in your community? And when I say community, I don't just mean those houses and buildings around where you live, but the community at large within the Mobile metro area. Have you contributed to making someone else's life better? And often it's good material to include in scholarship application essays and college admissions essays. And then it does help build your resume, that experience working with other people, interview skills. You know, one of the best things you can do is look in a mirror and practice. It is unnerving, a little awkward at first, but I have encouraged students many times, go in the bathroom, close the door, and talk to yourself in the mirror. The folks who live with you, they know you're crazy anyway, so practice. And it really is, it's really a good exercise to help you get better at interview skills, but interacting with other people and becoming comfortable in your own skin, hearing your own voice.
And you're mentioning really the resume. So the resume, the career interest inventories, the exploring, all of that is found at that same website, and you log in there through Clever, and it's all at the mcpss.com website. So every bit of this that we're speaking of is you use your MCPSS credentials to log in. So all of this is available there.
That's right.
You can go back and update your resume.
Because a lot of them have already been started.
Yes,
working
with their
either
four-year
career
plan.
coach or your school counselor, right?
It's the same site where your 4-year plan is. So with your resume, when you do something, go and put that in. Then you can update your resume. You're not having to build a new one every time. That's where your portfolio is, and you want to update it as soon as you do the community service or you.
That's right.
Win an award, you might forget about that. Mm-hmm. So, you can update that at any time.
Right. Finally, start talking and thinking now. If you're not sure what happens next, if you're not sure where you want to go to school, or if you want to go to school, or if you want to go directly into the workforce, or you want to, for next year, explore an internship, talk to your parents, your guardian, talk to your teachers, people who have experience in those areas, your school counselors, your academy specialists. Find those people who can get you to the answers that you're looking for. Now, let's talk about this special group of people, those who are leaving middle school and will be joining us in high school. First, we're very, very excited to have you come onto our campuses and become part of our campus communities. Often during the summers, we have freshman camps, and those are individual to every high school. We don't know if those will happen this summer.
Exactly.
We're hoping they will, but we don't know. And so we wanted to prep you and maybe show you some of what you would see if you came to camp. The biggest difference I think that some freshmen see in a high school is scheduling. You are not in the same courses all year long normally in our district's high schools. Typically we have 4 blocks, so those are 4 classes a day. We call those blocks instead of middle school periods. And those classes change at the semester. So the first set of classes is from August to December, and then we move into a second set of classes from January to May. Every year in high school, you're going to have 4 core courses, and those are the courses that are read here on the screen: math, science, social studies, and English language arts. So generally speaking, every year you're going to have one of those courses. As a freshman, you're also required to take beginning kinesiology, which is PE, it's a nice fancy word for PE, and career prep. And there are some exceptions here that your specific school counselor at your school can talk to you about. And then finally, 2 elective classes, and those vary from high school to high school, so I didn't even attempt to try to talk through those. Here's what's key. You're going to take these courses for 1 semester, so about 4.5 months, and then your grade is final. There's no end of the year fixing what I messed up early on. And by the way, Ms. Hart, what's some good advice for freshmen?
Start the very first day begins your grades. What I hear, I've worked with seniors for a long time, and what I hear from a lot of seniors is, how can I get my GPA up? What hurt them the worst was their freshman year when they came in and made C's and D's. You can't go back and change those. So coming in your freshman year and understanding that you need to make those good grades from the very beginning, that's one of the most important things to understand, that your freshman year grades count just as much as your senior year grades. So
from day one.
Day one. Grades
lead to credits, and that's the next biggest thing that can be confusing for some high schoolers, especially when you first begin in 9th grade. What is a credit? A credit is, I like to think of it as a check mark. It means that you completed an entire credit, means you've completed a full course. So if you go to a class every day for a semester, so from August to December, you earn 1 credit. You have to have 7 of those to move to 10th grade, and then every year after you're adding 7 more, a minimum of 7, to get to the next grade level, so that by the time you finish high school, you have to have a minimum in Mobile County, a minimum of 28 credits if you're seeking a regular advanced diploma. So if I'm adding honors, that gives me a couple of extra classes that I need in foreign language. You have to have a minimum of 30. And then the other big catch with honors is not just the 30 credits, but the GPA.
3.5.
So needing a 3.5 GPA, what does that mean, GPA? It means that you need to earn as good a grades as you can in each course, because each grade is translated to either a 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0. And because of our time constraints today, I won't dive deep into GPA, but just know this. The higher your grades in your courses, the higher your GPA. Coaches, scholarship committees, colleges all look at GPA to determine what kind of grades you're making in high school.
And I want to make a point. When you make an E in a class, you will have to retake that required course, but that E does not go away. And that E counts as 0 points on your GPA. But even though you retake it, it still stays on your transcript as 0 points.
That's why it's so important. The first day you're in high school, you're a high schooler, as a freshman, you must take every class, even PE, very seriously. Finally, our last bit of advice for freshmen. You're about to be faced with a whole lot of choices and a lot of increased personal responsibility. You'll have a lot of freedom you never had as a middle schooler. Choose wisely. Every day, every class counts. Get involved. Find your group of people, if it's a sport or a fine arts group or a club. And then finally, if middle school wasn't your thing and you're so glad to be moving on, high school is the perfect time to reset, to redeem yourself, redefine yourself, and start over.
Great advice.
Thank you so much for being with us these 3 weeks.